Hi everybody. I have received some requests to talk about books that I'm reading. And what I wanted to do with this video is just kind of explain my process to you and my system on how I decide what to read and when to read it, how I keep things organized. I'm going to give you a couple reviews, explain my rating system, and then show you just kind of the fun stuff that goes along with being an avid reader, like my book journal and my book bag and things like that. Having said that, however, I have not been doing well in this area. I have let other things take precedence, and I just feel like I haven't been very organized in this area. And so because of that, one of the goals that I have set for myself in 2016 is to read 52 books in the year. And so obviously that means an average of one a week. So when you do something like that, it does require some thought and some organization. And so this is where I started. You've seen this notebook before. This is where I organize my brain on paper. I have to have a journal like a notebook like this because all of my other planners just don't have the room. So it's nothing special, as you can see, but I just needed some space to write it down. And so this is where I started. This is just a running list that's not organized in any way, shape, or form. And how I came up with the books on here is, first of all, I looked with what I had. I have done the KonMari method, which is the life-changing magic of tidying up. I did go from 4 bookshelves down to 1, which is great, but I still have a full bookshelf of books that I want to read, and many of those I want to read and then donate, but I want to read them first. So those were added here. Then just recommendations, whether it's from a random acquaintance or a close friend or people that work at the library. I also looked on Amazon for the books that I had bought and their recommendations based on that. I also searched the internet for those 100 books to read lists. So all of that just went into this. And so as you can see, there's more than one page, and this isn't organized at all except for right over here. There's some dots on some and there's not on the other ones. And all that means is that I either own the book already or my library has it. So I just went to my library's website and just started plugging in all the titles and of course figured out if they had it or not. And then I could make decisions on the other books that I wanted to read. Do I want to buy this book? Do I want to see if I can borrow it from somebody, or do I just want to let this one go? I have to say I haven't really bought that many books. I would say only a few in the last couple of years. And I did rework my budget a little bit because I do think it's important, at least this year, to buy, I think, about 1 or 2 books for the month is, I think, how I've organized this and set this up. And so that's how I've done it. Then I took that list and I started sorting it by category. Now, I tend to lean towards nonfiction. When I take the time to read something, I want to learn. I want information going into my brain. But what I have found is that if I read solely those books, I get brain overload, I get brain fatigue, and so I need to balance it out a little bit with just fun reads, ones that are really easy, not necessarily a short book, but just one that I don't have to use a lot of brain cells, and it's pleasurable, it's enjoyable, I like reading it. So these are the categories here that I started with, and I just started plugging in those books into which category they fit into the best. And then I have some sub goals here. I wanted to read 4 financial books. I used to read 1 financial book a month, but because I'm so far along on my financial journey, I still want to learn and read, but I only want to do that once a quarter now. And then I also want to read some biographies because I really enjoy all those types of genres. And then I also have some more categories here, as you can see. And then, of course, as you can imagine, still way too many books for me to read in the year because it's only 52. I started narrowing it down by month. I started picking a theme for the month or a category that I wanted to focus on. I also wanted to include at least 1 fiction for each month. And then just whatever the focus was, whether it's, a seasonal type of thing or just a certain type of category that I wanted to learn for the month. And so obviously in February, it's going to be love, just things like that. So the other thing that I have noticed is that if I'm too stringent or too scheduled, that really doesn't work. So I do want to have a plan, which is great. Here's my yearly plan. But I wanted to have some leeway. I wanted to leave some room for those new releases that come out that I really want to include in here, or just some other great book that somebody has recommended to me. So just have it be a little bit more of an organic process, but still have an original plan. So that was all of my pre-planning that I did for my books. So I wanted to show you now the books that I read in January, which I only read 2. So I'm already behind, but I do have a plan to come up with that. The reason is these were more difficult reads for me. As you can see, when we're dealing with the brain, that's a very complex subject, so that's not something that you can read in a day. I'm going to try and give you a very brief synopsis of these books. The Secret Life of the Grown-Up Brain by Barbara Strauss is what they have found. The definition of the grown-up brain is the brain is not fully formed until the age of 25. And scientifically speaking, what the research has shown that the brain doesn't start declining in normal adults until the 70s, the 7th decade towards the end, so your late 70s. So there's this 50-year period, which they call the grown-up brain. So they also call it the middle-aged brain, but that's a different definition of what we think of as middle age. And so you have this, from 25 to 75, you've got this huge area of a grown-up brain, which means that it's fully formed and you can make good decisions, and you've got the wisdom and the experience to basically have the best brain possible until it starts biologically declining. With brain research, they've done a ton with babies and children and then teenagers and young adults, and then there's this huge jump to people who are in nursing homes where the brain has already started declining. So there's this huge population that they haven't really studied. So this is what this book is about, which I think is just fascinating. What they have found and what the general consensus was is that at the age of 25, everybody used to think that it's all over and it's just all downhill from there. That is not true at all. They have found that you can make improvements on your brain and continue to make important connections with your brain and just continue to grow and make your brain better. It's not just completely dead, but it also explains why you can lose your car keys, but yet you can run a Fortune 500 company. So it explains that kind of short-term memory loss, but why you can still make these awesome discoveries and awesome accomplishments with your grown-up brain, your middle-aged brain. It also does give great suggestions at the back on how to have a good, healthy brain and how to keep making it healthy. The Dante gyrus is the most important thing that they found when their research, and I won't take the time to explain it because you can imagine it's very complicated, but the best thing to do, which I'm not going to have a spoiler alert here, to nothing earth-shattering, they found that the number one thing that you can do to have a healthy brain that keeps improving is to exercise 30 to 45 minutes a day. That's the best thing you can do. And then eat fruits and vegetables. So nothing earth-shattering. But I really love, if you are interested in asking or answering the questions or finding out more about the brain, this is a really great book. I would give this 4 out of 5 stars, which I'll explain my rating system later. But I really did enjoy this. Obviously, you're going to have to be interested in learning about the brain to enjoy this book. The second one that I read was Hallelujah by J. Scott Featherstone. This book is really the reason why I only read 2. This one was a very difficult read for me. It's got 575 pages, which that's not the problem. I think it was well written, it was fine, but I just think there was too much superfluous information in here. If you're unfamiliar, Hallelujah is the chorus for Handel's Messiah, which is my all-time favorite piece of music. I listen to the entire score every Christmas and every Easter, and then of course different times in between. But I was completely interested in the subject, which was kind of surprising to me why this was so difficult. But I think the category here is historical fiction, which I've enjoyed a lot of that in the past, but I think this particular one, and I'm going to move this to the side now and show you my book journal, and I can tell you why. Now, I have done a complete video on my Moleskine passion journals. This is my book one, which I'm having a hard time with the sticker staying on, but this is my book journal. Let me show you how this is set up. So it's just got the complete alphabet on the side. Each letter has 6 pages, so there's a number of pages here. This is going to last me for many, many years. So obviously, Hallelujah is going to be under H. So I just put when I read it. I'm not interested in the week that I read it. I just am interested in the month and the year. And then some other information. Here's the main quote from Handel from the book. The notes over here, I just put that it's historical fiction. In the past, when I have written down something like this, and I've just put the title and the author, when I go back to that a few years later, I'm like, I don't remember that book. What was that? Was that a biography? Was it a mystery? I have no idea. So historical fiction, and then here's the synopsis, the coming forth of Handel's Messiah. And then here are my notes and opinion down here at the bottom. Way too long. It's 575 pages. For a story about Handel, it really was only about a fourth of the book, which if you're going to have a story, I would, in my opinion, it needs to be the majority of the book, not vice versa. I really liked how the chapter titles were phrases from the Messiah. It is historically accurate, which is great, but I feel like with the characters, he focused more on that than the story of Handel. It was really tough for me to get into and to finish. I had to force myself to finish it, and I was very interested in this subject, but I had a note that just to read the straight history from if I wanted to do this subject again next time. So I gave this one 2 out of 5. Now my rating system, 5 stars for me, you're not going to see very often, as well as the 1 star. 5 to me is like completely rocked my world, changed the trajectory of my life. I would go back and reference that again and again and again. I would probably want to read it every single year. I would tell every single person about it. So I can probably count on one hand the number of books that I've given a 5 to. On the opposite end of the spectrum, a 1 to me is it was terribly written. I didn't learn anything. It was boring. It was a waste of time. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. I can't think of a book off the top of my head that I have given a 1 star to. And really it's because I'm sure, like many of you, if I'm looking at a book, I do a little research. I at least look at the synopsis, and so I'm making fairly good decisions on the front end before I actually pick a book to read. So most of mine are going to be between 2 and 4. So obviously this one got a 2 just because it was I can't really recommend it. If you're interested in this subject, I'm sure there are other books out there, and I would recommend just reading maybe an article about it. I have actually gotten more out of some magazine articles that I've read on this subject than I did this book, which is really kind of a sad commentary. But anyway, I know if you're interested in historical fiction, and like all that, I had no problem with that. I wanted him to focus more on the story of Handel. Anyway, that's just my opinion. Then the other thing I have set up in this is the back section, as you can see, are blank, and you can come up with your own. The only one I really need right now are the 2 reads. So after I showed you my notebook, then I would take that and I'm going to decide per month. Now, obviously I wasn't organized in January, which is why mine aren't in here, but I do have 6 books picked out. I definitely want to read 4. My goal is 5, and if I get to 6, I'm just going to be really happy and I will have been caught up. But this, I picked 1 audiobook, which I also didn't mention that. I pick an audiobook per month. The audiobook that I read is actually a monthly read. I'm going to take a month to listen to it, and I listen to it while I'm traveling. So whenever that is, running errands, going to work, whatever, that's when I use the time for an audiobook. If I get to the end of the last week of the month and I need to catch up, then I'll show you how I have planned that in my planner. But obviously for February, the theme is going to be love. So I've got the 4 Loves by C.S. Lewis. I actually need to order that off of Amazon. I have points, so that's good. He is a very difficult read for me. He is so deep and intense that I cannot digest this one easily. That's definitely going to be a hard week for me, but I want to read that a lot. The Hypnotist Love Story is a mystery. So again, one of those fun reads. Leanne Moriarty, I have read one of her other books. I really, really enjoyed it. She's a mystery writer. Her books are actually very thick, lots of pages, but they're quick. They're easy to get into. One of my other goals for February is to drink apple cider vinegar and raw honey tea. And so I wanted to read a book about the benefits of that, the health benefits, by Paul Bragg. And then Bittersweet, with the whole theme on February with the bittersweet chocolate by Shauna Niequist. She keeps getting recommended to me, and I've never read one of her books, but I am going to have to end up ordering this one as well because my library doesn't have anything by her. And then Into the Air is kind of more of a seasonal one. And I actually have it. I got it from the library already because this is what I'm reading for this week, by John Krakauer, is I think how you say it. He's one of the survivors. This They do have a movie that just came out about this. It is the biggest disaster that they've had on Mount Everest. The most people died. And this book, I'm fascinated by these kinds of things, the real life kinds of stories. That why are people attracted to these kinds of things that are like superhuman feats that have a very high risk of failure? So I think he talks about that in this book, as well as just describes, what happened and just the circumstances and what's the draw to doing something like this. Because I am in the middle of winter as well, and we are getting a snowstorm tonight. So that's, at least I'm not dying from oxygen deprivation and hypothermia. The other thing I forgot to mention was my theme, or what I'm really trying to work on in February, is my routines. So the power of habit is the reason I'm listening to that one, because that's very, very important. And so that is my plan for February. I wanted to show you how I keep this organized in my planner. But before I do that, I also wanted to show you the one I just showed you, my Moleskine Journal. This is a year to year. This is going to last me for a very long time. And so how I'm keeping them organized sorry, it doesn't bother anybody else when the elastic gets twisted. Sorry. That's just one of my little pet peeves. So this is my gratitude journal, but it's also my accomplishments and just the good things that happened this year. I'm keeping a record of that. This is going to be my 1 year thing. And so I'm actually keeping track of those. Let me turn really quickly. So here I have different pens that I use each month. And so you probably won't be able to see this because it's silver, but I just wrote down the 2 books. And so in February, it'll be pink. So hopefully I'll have more written down. But this is how I'm keeping a record of what I read for the year. And so everything's just going to be nice and neat in here. And that's the difference between this one and my Moleskine Journal. So if I go back and look at that and I don't remember what the book is, I can go back and look at my Moleskine Journal to see what the synopsis was and what I learned and took away from that. So here is my actual personal planner. This is my Hobonichi cousin. And let me show you how I have things organized with books in here. And so I pulled out my stickers that I use, which are the brand Creative Teaching Press. So as you can see, just 4 different kinds, because I like a little spot of color. So this is how I have done it, and I only keep track of this on my weekly. I don't keep track of each day, at least for now, of what I'm reading. I just have the weekly goals. I know that I need to listen to so many hours of The Power of Habit to get through it by the end of the month. And then the book that I have picked for this month, or for this week, is Into the Air. And so I just have that, and then I've just divided the number of pages for each day. So I need to read 41 pages a day to make sure that I finish that in the week. So that's my weekly plan. And then here is my monthly plan right here. Sorry, everything's falling. I copied this from the Inkwell Press mission board, and I just used my hexagon Fisker's punch. And then I also pulled out my sheets to show you. This is the We Are Memory Keepers. There's just some really thin, transparent sheets that I put my goals on for the month. So you probably can't see this because it's really dark and busy, but over here, right here, it says read 5 books, and so that's how I have my goals. So that's how I do things in my planner. And then I wanted to show you how I keep things organized with the library, because I'm sure, like many of you, I have finds. And actually, let me pull out my planner again. So this is the only thing that I have in my dailies, which let me try and get there really fast, is when you go to the library and you get the little sheet, at least my library does that, I actually just washi tape it in. So this has the list of the books that I have checked out. So when I'm planning my days, I don't really need to worry about this or think about this till I actually get to the day. A lot of books I will take back before they're due when I get them done, because I try and go to the library twice a month. But if not, when I get to this day, then I'm like, oh my goodness, I have to take that back or I'm going to get a fine. So that's how I keep track of this. And then this is my notebook that I keep in my library bag. So let me show you that right now. It's actually big. I'm hoping it will fit. But this is my book bag, and I love this because it's a play on words. I had a good friend. I love this saying so much. She had a silhouette, and she cut this out and then painted it for me. But it's a really big bag, so I use this to obviously take back my books, as well as the number of books that I check out, and then there's a pocket on the back where I keep my library card, and then I always keep this little notebook in here. I have a pen that kind of marks my spot. And so these are just the call numbers and the books that I have either wanting to pick out for that time. So obviously this is going to last me a long time because I only use this once every 2 weeks. And then this is for my next one. I want to check out this book right here, which you probably can't read, but that's okay. So that's how I keep track of that when I'm actually in the library, because I don't like using their little pieces of paper. They just get everywhere and get lost. So I have my little notebook here. And this one, The Hypnotist Love Story that I had planned for February, it is checked out right now. So I did put a hold on that, which is what that little note is. But these check marks are the ones that I actually checked out. Check mark for the checked out. So I just keep that in my book bag. So anyway, I hope that has been helpful. Let me know if you guys have a goal like this or what you are reading. I'm always up for suggestions. So thank you so much for watching. I will talk to you guys again soon.